Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to CCxRC. In this video, we're going to be talking about these on-axle servo mounts that I've made to kind of fill the void after the Freestyle RC ones are no longer available and they've closed up shop. So wish my buddy Josh all the best, but this is what he had made before. And they're fantastic mounts. And I've been a big fan of this truck since it came out. This is the CEN version of what we now see from JEGS and their variations on this, and also on this one here. This one is a little set up more for racing. We'll talk about it in a little bit. I do want to just show you kind of what we have going on here, because I did put the on-axle servo mount on there, and we'll talk about why. I do have one of my just chassis kind of here, and I don't have a whole lot of room on the bench, but it does show how all of this kind of goes from your servo, which is tucked way up in here. It chases this kind of hole long. This is clipped in there, and it moves everything back and forth. And so it's a long run you've got to do in order to move your tires. And one of the problems is it steers all right and does that, but it doesn't center itself back to center very well. And I noticed it right away, and so I started talking with buddies about some options. I said, man, the best way would be like our other monster trucks, if we could just get a way to get the servos on the axles. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. You will need to save one piece of that, actually, to make it work. This was the first iteration my buddy Jason made for me, Jason Saunders, and you can see he just cut some aluminum here, got these brackets, and he found the hole sizes or distances, all that, and he mounted on these outer sides. So there's two screws that go in right here where your links mount, and there were already holes in the top of the axle there, so he chose to use that route. I was looking at just using like these two holes up here and doing like we see with the CCx24s and some of the ways that they do their servo mounts, but Josh had, I'd say, the best idea, and that was to go around the back side of the axle, which we'll show right here. I'm going to take the body off this now that you know what truck it is. And so he just screwed it in back on this part. There's also some holes that are available in the axle. You don't have to do anything. They're already there. And so we're going to supply you with the screws needed to mount this. He had a machine shop, and he did them out of aluminum. I kind of found a way to take his design and the idea of using the rear of the axle in those holes and making something that we could 3D print and would hold your servo in place here. And yeah, for the most part, it doesn't hit anything. If you get really off, it might hit here on your chassis, but I've kind of angled these so that if it does hit, it'll just kind of ride off and get up and where it needs to go. So it won't really hang up on there. Works really well, full suspension, and it self-centers itself right back to the zero. So I'm just running the servo that came with this one up here on the front. Back here on the back, you can see the Freestyle RC ones that used to be available, and they just were two arms that went up. This one kind of encapsulates the servo just to kind of stiffen all of this up, makes it have to ride a little bit higher. Actually makes the steering arm be in a great spot. So here's a couple things that you're going to have to do. You are going to have to take the arm, the initial arm that's up in here going to the back, take that off and save it. That's going to go right here, and you're going to need a longer screw, and we're going to go right through here and on over. Actually, you don't need a longer one because there's already a small arm here, so you're just going to basically replace this one with the longer one that's found attached right up here to your servo. So my servo's still in there. You're going to take off this arm, and you're going to mount it where this arm is. That's it. You're going to remove all this other stuff out of here, remove all this, take your servo out. You're going to need your screws for the servo because they will go right up front here in order to screw into this mount. So a very simple setup, and it's going to give you a whole lot more steering power and drivability. Very simple upgrade. This thing's in here. I mean, people are wondering, will it break? If you hit something hard enough, I will say that if anything on these axles happens, more than likely this little end piece here of your C-hub is going to pop off. because it's just bolted on here. It kind of cinches on there, so that's likely to pop off. I don't even run, as you can see, a servo saver on here. It's just direct steering, so any hits, you're not really getting the force here. Maybe if you just smash into something and you hit a rock or something like a big board and it jams in here, you might snap it off backwards, but as you can see, the whole axle is rolling. And if that were to happen, just get in touch with me. We can work something out. Maybe just pay shipping on a new one. We'll get you another one sent to you. So anyway, just trying to fill a void here, you guys, with something very simple. We'll show an install on one. We could install one. I've got one here. They're going to come in black, and they're going to come with the 4 screws that you need to mount them. I'm going to go ahead and mount up a green one, though, so you'll be able to see a lot better how this thing mounts in there, because it's really simple. And I think I've even got a servo kicking around. I do, right here, to show you how this will go in, because it'll just slide in like this. And I left enough gap. It's not supposed to be snug on your servo. There's room for it to move. Where it's going to snug it down is when you tighten it here, because there's different size servos. I needed to leave room, especially if you run a short one. It's hard to get in and around this little cord. I found that actually with the new Reefs Raw 400. So this is what we're going to be dealing with here and putting this on the truck. So let's just mount it up onto this guy, and we can actually do the process of doing it. So we're going to remove this, which is also going to be in. We're going to have a little nut on the bottom here. Keep this long screw. There's a bunch of spacers here you'll want to make sure you don't lose as well. So I'm actually going to take this and put it back through all of these for now. Just kind of hold them in place. And we're going to remove this whole arm. We don't need any of this. So I've got a ball head, so I can just go at an angle like that, and that comes out. And then we're going to go ahead and remove this, which also needs some needle nose pliers on it. Or you could leave it on it if you're going to bring your whole servo mount down. I guess we could show that process. I could rebuild this, I guess, if I want. Make it back into a truck. That's probably the best idea. All right, so let's just go ahead and take this servo then out. Put the Chaos one. It's an upgrade on my other one. That's what I was running as the servo horn. All right, so this is all going to come off. I'm going to pull this down through like so, but you can see we don't have enough cable. It's caught up here, and it's all tied down into here. So we're gonna have to open up this box now on the top. I'm gonna tighten all this down. Shorten this up. There we go. And then this all sits like this. Spacers, and you can choose to do the nut up or down. Typically I would do up so it doesn't potentially catch on anything, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. Stick that on, and then we're going to just bolt this back on. So you're going to need a 2mm and a 2.5mm wrench for this job. So that's all tightened up now. So I got to take this off to run the wire through this. So that's going to have to happen. So 1.5mm, where are you at? Send this off. I'll be honest, on my other one, I just removed this and didn't put it back on, but it does help keep water and dirt out. All right, so here we go. We're gonna need, oh, it's strapped again in here. They got it nicely wired up. That is no joke. Somebody spent a lot of time with this when they put it together in the factory. All right, so this bottom one we're just gonna pull out like so, and we're gonna feed this whole thing out there. So now we're gonna have our servo just on its own, and we're not gonna put this back together yet. So the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna install this. I don't have any drive shafts or anything on here, but you'll get an idea of what we're doing. This is a kind of a scabbed build that I stole a bunch of stuff from for other builds, other CEN stuff I was doing. All right, here we go. These come included with the kit. These are 2.5s, and you will want a drill of sorts, or an electric driver to thread these in. So I'm gonna pre-thread them, just because it's easier to be able to push down on the table and thread it. And then it's just gonna slide, go right over the top like this, and it's gonna clip in right there. And my arm's all over the camera, taking you for a ride. So that's how it's gonna mount. It's gonna sit right in here. And this is where you're gonna wanna drill, because we're gonna have to make these create threads in this axle. So it gets in there super, super tight. This little drill driver is struggling. So you can go back in by hand and finish tightening it down. I don't know if this one's gonna have the power. I love this little thing. I'll put a link to it in the description if I remember. If not, somebody remind me in the comments to put a link to it, because it is a very cool tool. It has a lot less power than this Ryobi, but you're less likely to strip things as well. So there we go. That is how you fit that in there. Everything bolts up tight. You'll see it pushing shavings through on this side. I put a little hole here on the first versions of this, so that people could, if they wanted, put a screw there. I don't think it's necessary. In fact, I'm gonna remove it just to get a little bit more strength there too. But I even had that idea of being able to put a screw down into it, but not necessary. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna feed our wire through now. Like so. Put our servo in, and then we're gonna take the ones that came with it. I'm gonna go back to this one on a 2mm, and they had washers and stuff on them. I don't think they're gonna be necessary, so we're just gonna thread these right in to our mount. If you have longer screws, one of the cool things and probably the better things you would do is actually run it through and put a nut on the backside, because you're just threading into this PLA, which can strip out. I really haven't had any issue, but something to be aware of. So here you're gonna notice this horn that came stock is too long. So I'm just gonna take these snips and snip away at it. Just need to get enough clearance. You could take a Dremel. Lots of ways to do this. I'm taking the quick approach right now. Ah, that one hit me right in the eye. Good thing I had it closed. All right, so what you should do before you reattach this, in all good honesty, what I should tell you to do is to center it. So you're going to want to take this off. You're going to want to turn it back on. And then you're going to want to, so I'm just going to hold this here. This one's the opposite way to tighten. I'm going to get this as close as I can so that my servo horn can be as almost straight up and down as possible when I'm lined up here. That's pretty close when it's straight there. So we'll go about there. But yeah, if you remove these spacers, you'll have a much straighter line on this. And that's why I had this upside down. That's why. Because now we're gonna get too much screw hanging out the bottom. So I'm gonna go from the bottom up through here and then add this. And hear the printer going. I got a bunch of stuff 3D printing these days. It's running non-stop. That's better. A little bit straighter approach. I like it. So what we're going to do is we're going to run our wire up through here. So we got to remove the other one for our ESC. So we have room. This is in here kind of snug. They made this box just big enough for everything in here. So what we'll do, even though we're not set up, I'm gonna go ahead and give it power so we can center that servo, which is what you're gonna want to do. Just give it a little juice. So that's where the center is, according to it. So we're gonna remove our servo horn / saver. And we're going to try to remount it here. It's on there pretty good. Try prying it off. There it goes. So I just got to realign this like so. And then we'll be able to center this. We want to be right about there. And we can actually just take part of this off. So we're going to actually still keep this in front, but we're going to put our screw through from this side. That way we can put a nut on, like so, and it's not going to hit anything. It's the tightest way for us to get this all set up. So that's on there nice and tight. Now we'll line this back up with this. Bingo. Put our cap back on, and now we can screw this in here. I don't actually have a radio that's bound to this, but we'll show it working on an actual working truck. This one has 4 steer in everything. This one's got all my upgrades on it. We'll see it here. Turn it on. Boom. You see that? That thing just centered itself right up. That's awesome. So you can see how much more power I've got up here. Still, I mean, it's a stock servo. It's not the fastest servo I own or the most powerful, but it gets around, and man, it's a lot of fun, that's for sure. So anyway, guys, that's it. You can pick them up at CCxRC.com. They're $10 with the mounting hardware for the back. You got to use your screws up top here, and you should be good to go there. So yeah, they'll come in black like this, but in order for you to see how it stands out, we did the green ones in order to give you the visuals. But hopefully this will help you guys out, and yeah, let you do a bunch of upgrades and all that kind of stuff like I've got with this one. This one's got all my upgrades because this is the one that I would race, because I didn't want to do too many changes to the body and all that, because I liked the B50 look so much. But this has all the metal upgrades down low here, internally in the axles as well. You can see I am running the stock servo saver still on this one. This has got a special mount, changed it up. Comes from the other side even. So yeah, pretty cool. This one has the wheelie bar back here, and that is really helpful. These things like to wheelie. But all that this one needs to be put on are the tires, which I have sitting right here. These are 20mm extenders, just to get it out for racing, to have a little bit more stability. But I would not do these in order to put big tires on. I did it to put on 2.2 size still, and to just widen the stance some. That's all I would recommend for it. Anything that's too heavy, and you're going to just start breaking stuff. But it did all right with these for racing. I wasn't bashing with it. And the extra width definitely was helpful. And you have to have the steering servo on the axles if you really want to do any competing with it, because yeah, it just doesn't straighten out after you turn without it. So this is running EcoPower WP 110T servo. It's one of them that I liked for very just basic stuff, inexpensive servo that I've had good performance with. So let me know what you think. And people have been asking me about this thing for a long time. I did not have a well, what it boils down to is I didn't have a 3D printer or any design skills, and so I've been learning the design stuff and you know, just the measuring and all that stuff to kind of get it set up, and we're doing all right now. But so sorry it took so long. I know that there's been a lot of want for this, and so I'm glad we're able to get it to you guys. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. As always, have fun RCing, guys. We'll catch you next time.